Tonight on the Donlon Report, school's out, but does it have to be? The battle between Chicago and its teachers, with students and parents caught in the middle. Plus, America's fentanyl crisis. It's the #1 killer of people aged 18 to 45, and just a trace amount can be deadly. We're going to talk with the top fentanyl doctor in the country about what to do about that. And would your dog do this? He went to find police after he and his owner were in a car crash and ended up saving 2 lives. We are jam-packed tonight, and we're glad to have you with us. Live from our NewsNation Chicago studios, the Donlon Report starts right now. Hello. Is a major teachers union putting teachers ahead of students? It sure seems to be the case, and that is the pulse of America tonight. Is there any other way to look at the teachers union in Chicago? Essentially voting to strike, or at least to remain out of the classroom, leaving tens of thousands of parents scrambling. They say the schools aren't safe given the Omicron surge, and the city hasn't done enough to keep them virus free. Yet everything we are told, everything we've read, says the safest place for kids to be is in school. Don't take our word for it. Here's the President of the United States.
We know that our kids can be safe when in school, by the way. That's why I believe schools should remain open. We provided the states with $130 billion, with a B, billion dollars to specifically keep our students safe and schools open.
Now, if you don't believe the president, how about Dr. Fauci? Now, maybe you're skeptical of him or you have some Fauci fatigue after nearly 2 years of COVID. But what about the health commissioner for the city of Chicago, who has appeared on our broadcast?
For all of these reasons, and for the fact we think about the health in all forms when we think about kids in school, I'm disappointed that we're having this conversation again, because this is one that has been answered. I make a lot of hard decisions. I give a lot of advice. You look at the data on this one, the answer actually is very clear.
Stay open. That from Dr. Arwady. The New York Times agreed with a recent op-ed titled, "No Way to Grow Up. Americans have accepted more harm to children in exchange for less harm to adults." Here are some facts to back that up. Math and reading levels for 3rd through 8th graders dropped as schools went virtual. 3 medical groups, including the American Academy of Pediatrics, recently declared a national state of emergency in children's mental health due to the isolation and disruption of the pandemic. Suicide attempts have risen sharply, especially among girls ages 12 to 17, up 51% from 2019 to 2021. How are teachers in Chicago different than the rest of us who are vaxxed, boosted, masked, and going to work every day? Are they different than the 2 million people a day who are traveling by airplane in this country? A professor from UC Irvine who studies COVID told us on this broadcast, the hiding in our basement behind the pile of sandbags moment has come and gone. If the rationale is that there's COVID outside the door, well, we're going to be hiding in our basement forever because there's going to be COVID next year and the year after that. 62% of Americans are fully vaccinated. 74% have had at least 1 dose. That, according to nearly any doctor you ask, is the pathway to normalcy and safety with this thing. So if you're keeping score at home, that's 3 doctors and the President of the United States, who says keep kids in school because that's what's best for them and that's what makes the most sense. And that's where we start tonight. We bring in now our friend Ben Bradley from WGN in Chicago. So Ben, we went after the union pretty hard here. Defend them. How are they defending this? Why are they doing it?
Well, not to disagree with everyone from the president on down, Joe, but I don't think the question is, are schools safe? I think the question is, with COVID circulating, are they particularly less safe than anywhere else in the country? And that's what Chicago health officials have been saying, is that, no, we can't guarantee that you won't get COVID here, but the data says that schools have not been super spreaders. Well, the union looks at the numbers. The union looks at its members who say, we're concerned. The virus is circulating rampantly here, and we don't trust the school district. Chicago Public Schools badly botched testing over winter break. They sent out 150 40,000 at-home test kits so kids could get tested and return those test kits before they came back to school after winter break. Only 40,000 people returned the test kits, and the delivery system was so bad, about half those tests weren't even usable.
So where are the numbers right now, Ben? I think we saw some of them there just a second ago. How many people are out sick right now in the district?
Well, if you look at the Chicago Public Schools COVID tracker, which some have said dramatically undercounts COVID cases in the district, there are about 10,000 people in quarantine right now. That would be students and staff. 435 reported cases since schools resumed on Monday. But keep in mind, Joe, this is a district that's got 340,000 students.
Right. But parents also, Ben, are asking about the money. Where is the money going? We just heard from the education secretary talk about the $130 billion that was given to school districts across the country. How much of that went to Chicago? What was it used for? And wasn't it supposed to address concerns just like this?
Yeah, and that's a point the teachers union's making, Joe. Chicago got about $2 billion. Of that, $100 million went to Chicago public schools for extra air purification systems, for masks, for testing, for all of those things that they say make schools no more dangerous when it comes to COVID than any other place. So $100 million went to the city's schools. The union is saying it's not enough. But as we've seen, nothing's enough anywhere you go. Here's the issue in Chicago, and that is the teachers union essentially stole the keys to the car from Mayor Lori Lightfoot, and that's why schools were essentially shut down today, because they had a vote. 70% of them last night said, we want to go remote. The mayor said, wait a minute, you don't get to decide when we have remote learning. You know, if there are schools here and there that have staff shortages, they'll go remote, but not district-wide. And so then the mayor today locked the teachers out of their online platforms, so there wasn't even remote learning.
Right. What's happening in other schools? I know you have kids in the schools in the suburbs. Chicago, obviously a very big district, but what are other districts in the area doing?
Some suburban Chicago school districts have closed, largely because of staffing issues. In my kids' school district in the suburbs, I just saw an email that said 100 kids in the district have COVID. About 30 teachers are out. What they're doing sometimes is saying, hey, you know what? A math teacher may not be teaching your kids math, but we'll have somebody there because we saw the damages and the way kids fall behind with remote learning.
All right, Ben, before we let you go, any idea how long this goes on in Chicago?
Well, the good news is Chicago Public Schools meeting with the teachers even as we speak, trying to see if there's some sort of common ground. The teachers union has said either they need a lot more in the way of safety procedures or they need cases to plummet. So let's hope that the glide path of Omicron is similar to what we saw in South Africa, which hopefully we're just a week or two away from cases dramatically dropping. But the teachers, for their part, say they're not going back until at least January 18th unless they come to some sort of agreement.
All right, Ben Bradley, live for us in Chicago. Thanks, Ben. Perhaps the most impacted in all this, the parents, of course, beyond the students. The parents now scrambling to find care for their children. And here's more.
As long as the kids can be in school safely and there are sufficient staff and teachers to take care of them, then I think everything that can be done to keep them in school should be done.
To keep kids out of school seems kind of ridiculous. If you have a child with special needs, they can't do it remote.
I think kids sometimes are resilient more than we are, but at the same time, you know, it's hard for them. I wonder, like in the long term, what is it going to do to them psychologically?
Joining me now for more on this, former superintendent of schools for Chicago and also Philadelphia, our friend Paul Vallis is back. So you've run districts in these big cities. Let me ask you this. Who is running the district in Chicago and who should be?
Well, the Chicago Teachers Union obviously can almost dictate their will and have their will with the district. And so the district clearly is not controlling its own destiny.
You've been in the chair. What would you do if you were in this situation?
Well, I would have been prepared. I mean, they've been telegraphing since the summer that they're going to look for a justification to go remote again or to make it easy to go to remote system-wide. So they should have been prepared. Obviously, they were not. The whole idea that they were negotiating in good faith is just a reflection of naivety on the part of the new leadership. They should have been prepared. They should have had contingency plans, and they should have made it clear that if they walk off the job, they're not going to get paid. That's a violation of the union contract, and they're going to have non-paid status.
That is, I understand, it is the case. I think I heard that last night. That the teachers were not going to be paid.
Well, we'll see how long that lasts.
Okay, so what do you think the the teachers union knows that just about every medical expert we've heard from doesn't.
Well, look, the teachers union has now gotten their way. First of all, they struck and they got the richest contract that they've ever received, $1.5 billion, without increasing adding a minute to the school day or a day to the school year. And they've threatened to strike 3 times during COVID, during the first year, last year,
right,
and literally shut the district down for the entire year, totally intimidating the district. So what made us think for a second that somehow they were not going to kind of use that threat to strike again to extract greater concessions? And basically what they're asking for is they're asking to make it easier to shut down the system, make it easier to reduce instructional time, make it easier to, in effect, allow teachers to quarantine, et cetera. So they're making demands that are really going to hurt instruction and result in the schools drifting kind of in and out of remote instruction periodically during the year.
You could go back and forth, I guess, on whether this is theoretically a strike. The teachers union would argue we have offered to go back today virtually, but the district said, no, we're not going to do that. Why not go back virtually at least for a week until we get this figured out?
Well, look, at some point you just have to draw the line with the teachers union. Virtual instruction in Chicago has been an absolute catastrophe. And let me point out that during COVID, seven students, 7 school-age youth, 18 years and younger, have died from COVID. And look, the loss of a single young person is one loss too many, but 145 have been murdered. 10 times the number of young people have died from accidents, 3 times the number of natural causes, 3 times the number from suicides. The bottom line is keeping kids out of school is having catastrophic consequences on them academically, social, and emotionally, and from a violence standpoint, both violence committed against students and violence committed by students. It's right, reaching historic levels. Some of
the teachers in LA, I know, are required to test students as well. Is that an avenue to get back in Chicago?
Well, I think, look, this whole idea that you have to test everybody or you do not allow them into school, it's just that the district doesn't have the capacity to do that. I think they should be doing school-based testing. They should clearly ramp up testing, but it's just an excuse. The kids are minimally impacted. The kids are at much greater risk being at home. They're not quarantining at home. Remember, 85% of the school district is come from low-income families. Only 1 in 6 of the low-income families in Chicago can work remotely. So consequently, the kids are either left home alone or the parents have to leave their jobs to care for their kids.
Well, that was another complaint, was that this all came down literally at the last minute last night, 10 o'clock at night, so parents were scrambling.
The union didn't have to do that. Look, it's not that the district hasn't dropped the ball. They should have been prepared for this. They should have had a contingency plan. They should have been more aggressive to take the excuse away that the unions were going to find to shut the school district down. So they're not off the hook. But at the end of the day, this decision to shut down the schools, the overwhelming responsibility lies in the hands of the leadership of the Chicago Teachers Union.
We'll see how long it goes, but they're threatening at least to January 18th, so we'll see. Paul Vallis, good to have you in studio.
Thanks for having
your time. Well, while Chicago schools are going back to remote learning, other school districts and businesses around the country are finding ways to adjust to COVID and what some are calling the great sick out. For more on that, we go to NewsNation's Brianenton. Brian, how are other districts in the country handling this?
Well, I was listening to your conversation, Joe. Certainly what's happening in Chicago is very, very extreme, but you've got really big problems at school districts throughout the entire country from coast to coast, with thousands and thousands of teachers calling in sick every single day. In some of the smaller and medium-sized districts, they've actually had to close down because there are just not enough teachers in the schools to even look after the kids. And what's happening in Michigan is really interesting. We've been on top of that today. Basically, there's a new law there because this has all become such an issue that they can now use bus drivers and cafeteria workers that just have a high school diploma to go in and be substitute teachers because there are so many teachers that are not in the classroom right now, Joe.
And Brian, this is going beyond schools. I know, just about everyone you talk to knows someone who's sick or isolating for 5 days. And I know we're seeing this impact businesses, a number of them as well.
Oh, yeah, every single industry. I mean, obviously, the airlines get a lot of the attention because of all the cancellations, but it's impacting every single industry. It's hurting small businesses hard. We're outside this Wawa convenience store because they're having a hard time hiring people. They're trying to hire 2,000 people just in Florida, where we are right now. And there's already this workforce shortage. And now on top of that, you've got all of the people calling out sick. They're really trying to get creative. They're paying $15 an hour for a cashier job. They'll give you health insurance, 401k. They pay back your college loans, and they even give you a free sub every shift you work. They're just trying to get people in the door, Joe.
A lot of incentives to get people working, for sure. Brianenton, thank you very much for the update. Good to see you. Well, remember this from last month? Migrants crossing the border illegally in Arizona, just as the governor was holding a news conference about migrants crossing the border illegally. We are going to have an update from the town where this all happened, and the mayor is now asking for help there. That's ahead. And take a look at this. That's a U.S. penny, and next to it, you have to look very carefully. Just went away. Hopefully we can get it back for you. Is how much fentanyl it takes to kill a person. How do we deal with the #1 killer of younger Americans? That's ahead. And don't forget, you can follow us on social media at the Donlon Report on Twitter. Last month, we showed you this video from Arizona, a group of migrants casually crossing into the U.S. near the city of Yuma, Arizona, all while the governor of that state was holding a news conference on the migrant surge coming in at that exact spot. Well, tonight, the mayor of Yuma is now saying his city is being overwhelmed with a massive influx of migrants and warned that the city may not have the resources to deal with the problem. NewsNation's Marky Martin joins us now with more on this surge we're talking about, particularly in Yuma. Marky?
Yeah, hey, Joe, this mayor has gone into great detail about the 2,405% increase in migrant encounters that his agents are having right there at the border in his Yuma sector. He said the numbers are just staggering. And keep in mind, this is also the same city, the same area that had to declare a state of emergency over this just last month when agents encountered 6,000 migrants in a 5-day period. That mayor, Douglas Nichols, hopping on Fox News this week to talk about how this has stretched his city so thin. He said they don't have the personnel. They certainly don't have the resources to keep up with this type of influx. Take a listen. Of course, in January of last year, when President Biden took office, and Nichols said that the momentum has just been building at a pace that has been unsustainable, Joe. He said at this point, ICE and his Border Patrol agents can't even, resume operations as they normally do.
We'll be able to ask the mayor tomorrow about that because he'll be joining us here on the Donlon Report. Marky, what's the latest on Remain in Mexico? I know that it's been expanded beyond San Diego. What's the latest on whether that's helping to alleviate the surge?
Yeah, it just expanded in the San Diego sector this week. And for those who don't remember, under Supreme Court order, the entire program was revived just last month. But this is the interesting thing, Joe, and I'll also add, too, since its revival, about 200 migrants have been sent back to Mexico. 200. I mean, it's a drop in the bucket of the 1.6 million migrants we saw cross into the United States in 2021. As for Yuma, the mayor also expressing concern there, saying that when MPP gets rocking and rolling fully in his sector once again, Yuma only has 10 slots a day to enroll migrants in that program. And at this point, Joe, his agents are seeing hundreds of migrants cross over their borders on a daily basis.
All right, Marky Martin, thank you for the live update tonight. And just again, a quick reminder, we will have Mayor Nichols join us tomorrow night on our broadcast right here. Another big problem at the border, fentanyl coming across. It is now the #1 killer of Americans aged 18 to 45. And for the first time in America, federal law enforcement seized more fentanyl than heroin at the border last year. Tonight, police in California are sounding an alarm after 4 people died of fentanyl-related drug overdoses in just 1 hour. Meantime, Governor Tom Wolf of Pennsylvania is calling for the legalization of controversial fentanyl test strips to be passed to users because addicts are taking fentanyl and not even realizing it. Opioid and pain management expert Dr. Paul Christo joins us now. Doctor, it's great to have you with us. We appreciate the time. My first question is, why isn't this test strip legal right now? Why is it controversial?
Well, it's controversial because we don't know. I guess there's some question about the value of the fentanyl test strips. Frankly, I think they're extremely valuable and they should be used across the country. All a user has to do is place the test strip in a container that they've scraped off some of the drug of abuse into and add water. And once they do that, if the fentanyl test strip is positive, it indicates that fentanyl is contained in that particular drug they're going to ingest. And by the way, stay away from it because it can lead to death very, very quickly, as you've described.
Right. We're looking now at a picture of a penny, and then what you see, the little powdery substance next to it there is the amount of fentanyl it takes to kill. Correct me if I'm wrong here, doctor, but from what I understand, if someone takes a drug with fentanyl in it, particularly if they've never been exposed to fentanyl, it's not a question of whether, but they will overdose. Is that right?
Well, I mean, yes, likely. The answer is yes, likely they will overdose because you just need small amounts of fentanyl injected intranasally or intravenously, especially, to kill you. And it kills you because it stops your breathing. And it can do so in a matter of minutes. So you can imagine if you're ingesting heroin that's been laced with fentanyl, you know, the chances that you're going to die are astronomical.
Well, I understand the value of what we were talking about with the test strip. You could also make the case that, you know, Narcan has been invaluable because it has saved, I'm guessing, hundreds of lives from overdoses. But it does beg the question of the bigger problem that people are still doing drugs that they don't even realize could kill them, I guess.
That's right. I mean, so a lot of people who are using these substances don't know that they're laced with fentanyl. First of all, so they may purchase oxycodone on the street, they may purchase a benzodiazepine on the street and not realize that those drugs are being laced with fentanyl. And as we said, fentanyl is lethal, it's extremely potent, and it can lead to death very quickly. Now, you mentioned Narcan. Narcan is key. I don't think we have enough availability of Narcan throughout the states yet, or we don't have enough information disseminated to people about the value of Narcan because it saves lives, no question. All you have to do is inject it intranasally. It's a spray, and it can save your life until you can get to the hospital.
What does it say to you, doctor, that this hasn't, I guess, in a way, halted the drug problem? I mean, people aren't worried or at least thinking about the fact that what they're about to do in the form of a drug could kill them, and they're still doing it.
That's right. They're not. I think we've seen a lot of stress, emotional stress, economic stress related to the pandemic that continues today. So we've seen a lot of people in recovery relapse, and we've seen people who otherwise did not have a substance use disorder start using drugs of abuse, that is, these mind and mood altering substances to cope with the stresses of COVID-19.
How do we improve this, doctor? What do you see ahead?
Well, I think number one, it's important for people to realize that there are two good resources here. One is the American Psychological Association that has a website and a locator for physicians, other healthcare practitioners for mental health. Two, SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, has a website. It has an 800 number for support services. Take advantage of them.
One more quick question before you go. If someone were to use a drug recreationally that has fentanyl in it and they do happen to survive, are they then at an increased risk of addiction?
Not necessarily, no. I mean, addiction is sort of a complicated psychological, biological, social process that occurs over time. So the answer is no, they're not at risk for addiction if they just use fentanyl once.
All right. Listen, Dr. Paul Christo, it's great to have your expertise and your insight on the broadcast tonight. We appreciate the time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Here's a live look at Capitol Hill tonight ahead of tomorrow's first anniversary of the January 6th riot. And we're asking, how can we come together as Americans if we can't agree on maybe even what happened that day? We'll get into that. And a poorly timed tweet from the vice president during the big 24-hour traffic jam in Northern Virginia. We have that for you as well when we come back. There's heightened security on Capitol Hill tonight before tomorrow's one-year anniversary of the January 6th riot. The Department of Homeland Security says it's operating at a greater level of vigilance, but has not identified any credible threats. Joining us now is NewsNation Washington correspondent Kelly Meyer. Kelly, so DHS has been looking harder at domestic threats overall in the past year. What are they finding?
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. And the Department of Homeland Security telling us tonight that since January 6th, they have taken more aggressive action against these events of domestic extremism and trying to combat it. They say they are accelerating information sharing with state and local law enforcement agencies about potential threats, and that they've also distributed $180 million to houses of worship and nonprofit community groups because they say places like these have been targets. When we asked them what is fueling this rise in domestic extremism, this is what they had to say.
There are a lot of factors that are driving this rise, but I think what we see often in case after case after case is people who have been seeing false narratives online, often on social media, and are taking those false narratives to heart. Like, for example,
DHS telling us this is very common and very worrying occurrences, and they also say it's pushing people towards violence. Joe?
So, Kelly, we had the story yesterday about how the Washington Post and ProPublica had just done an extensive investigation into some 10,000 attacks on social media after the election, between the election and January 6th. Is there anything DHS is doing to intervene in that?
Well, we had the same question, and DHS tells us they can't stop someone from posting these things. Silver tells us that they are not regulators of speech, but they can work with these tech companies. They can monitor these posts and then reach out to the tech companies. They will share what information they have, and then the tech company can take action. Joe?
All right, Kelly Meyer, thank you. Live for us tonight in D.C. Want to bring in now political and social impact strategist Crystal Knight and former Texas state lawmaker and founder of the Patriot Academy, Rick Green. Rick, let's start with you. How serious is this domestic terrorism? According to the FBI, it's right near the top of the list, if not at the top. Is it?
Well, we're certainly hearing a one-sided approach there. I mean, everything he described in terms of false narratives leading people to violence sounds more like the millions of tweets and millions of communications and thousands of property damaging and life-taking things that happened during the Antifa and BLM riots. Why are they not looking into that instead of just one day of things that should not have happened, obviously, on January 6th, but one day of it versus an entire year of it, and they're completely ignoring the other side. And you were already covering the real threat to America, which is the nearly 2 million illegal aliens that waltzed across our border this year, 10,000 of which, actually 10,763 of which, were criminals. Those are the domestic and foreign threats that we should be focused on.
Crystal, I'm not sure how you can compare January 6th to anything, but I'll let you take it from there.
I totally disagree with your guest, and I can't believe that that kind of dangerous rhetoric is even happening right now on TV. What we saw on January 6, 2021 were over 700 people who scaled the Capitol, who literally were peeing on the Capitol, who were defacing, offices and multiple places inside of the Capitol, which is one of the more sacred places of our democracy. And so it is an incomparable incident that happened, and it's also a failed coup at the hands of the Republicans and at the hands of former President Donald Trump. He has to answer for this. More bombshells continue to drop around this January 6th Select Committee. And so I'm looking forward to all of the people who will be prosecuted for the insurrection, the failed insurrection that happened last year.
Well, we'll be hearing much more about it tomorrow for sure on the anniversary. Let's talk about the media for a minute. People are consuming less news. News engagement is down from 2020. In one poll I saw, each party and the independents even said that the media is pushing their own bias in their reporting. Rick, is that the problem here? Is the media amplifying the divide, do you think?
Well, without question, but I think a lot of people are to blame for this, not just the media, any politician or pastor or even a parent that has been unwilling to speak truth out of fear of being canceled, been unwilling to teach the American value system that should bring us together instead of divide us. We all have a little bit of blame to accept. But when you allow the media to call what happened on January 6th an insurrection, and then a year later, not one person being charged with an insurrection, let's face it, the extremism is the hyperbole over what happened on January 6th. I've said it all over the place that those who did break things or in any way attack a cop or push a cop should be in jail. But those were few and far between compared to what happened over the course of a year. How can I compare it, Joe? Because it should be compared. The fact that we're not comparing billions of dollars in property damage and dozens of people being killed all throughout the Antifa and BLM riots, and yet all we want to talk about is January 6th. I mean, that's just foolish to not pay attention to the real threats that are out there across the nation.
Well, again, wasn't an attempt to overturn an election or potentially overthrow a government, which is what it was seen as by many people. Crystal, why do you think people are watching less?
Well, I think people are watching less because they're hearing people like your guest on this show continue to spew dangerous rhetoric about the truth, about things like January 6th, because it was an insurrection. It was a failed coup on the democracy of America. The other thing, too, is people are beginning to create their own content. And so what we're seeing are people going to TikTok and Instagram and these alternative forms of media to really consume the news that speaks to them and speaks to what they want to hear. Unfortunately, when we're seeing this decrease in these larger cable networks, partially it's because it's very partisan, and people are really trying to get away from that and really understand what their audience wants and really go into media sources that they really want to hear from.
Rick, this is why we like to have different voices on, because we want people to be able to weigh both and make their own decisions. But it is admittedly difficult to do when we can't even agree on the basic facts. I mean, we all saw what happened on January 6th, and yet we can't seem to agree on what it was, what it is, or even how to investigate it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's because we're coming from a completely different value system. And when you're willing to say what Crystal's saying about January 6th, but not acknowledge that the same types of things were happening during the Kavanaugh hearings and the Senate buildings 3 years ago, the same things were happening. Far worse was happening
none of
at
that
the federal
happened
court
again
buildings
like
in
January
Portland and
6th.
Seattle.
Really?
Come on, Rick.
When did anyone ever skip? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, that's okay. I mean, let you make the point, Rick, because I don't know how. No one tried to overrun the Capitol during those, though.
They did. They absolutely took over a Senate building. Are we forgetting the things that happened? And even more importantly, night after night, a federal court building was attacked, burned. I mean, those things don't compare. No one was armed on January 6th. We don't have anyone that used firearms in any way. I mean, that was not. If that was an insurrection, guys, that was the most poorly planned. Failed insurrection in the history of mankind.
Rick, you're living in an alternative universe. Rick, you're clearly living in an alternative universe, and maybe we're living in two different Americas, because the America that I saw on January 6th, I was actually here in the city, and I saw people. Everyone saw the same thing on TV, and so the way that we're consuming this information is clearly different, because you're seeing it as one thing and trying to compare BLM and Antifa to something that, these people were really trying to overthrow this government, democracy as we know it in the United States of America. And so that is incomparable to any other thing that's happened in this country in recent memory and in recent times. And so
that is
to
such
sit
an
here and
exaggeration
continue
of the facts. No one was trying to overthrow the government. I mean, that's the problem.
There are text messages. There are text messages right now. There are text messages right now from sitting members of Congress who literally were advising the former president's chief of staff to ask Vice President Pence not to move forward with certifying the election results. If that's not an attempt to overthrow the government, then what is?
It is not an attempt. Let's have a reasonable intellectual.
Go ahead, Rick.
Let's have a reasonable intellectual discussion about.
Go ahead, Rick.
Let's have a reasonable intellectual discussion about what the 12th Amendment says, about how the process works, about what Thomas Jefferson did in 1800 when he was sitting in Mike Pence's shoes.
Rick, Donald Trump lost.
Let me finish, please.
Rick, Donald Trump lost.
Before you go with your exaggerations, let me finish. There are absolutely, positively constitutional arguments for 3 different things Mike Pence could have done that day, and none of them were an insurrection or an overthrowing of government. They were following the constitutional process for what you do when you have multiple sets of electors. And for us to now say today that because there were people in and out of government asking for the Constitution to be followed based on their interpretation, that is somehow an insurrection is wrong. To tie that to those people who were doing criminal activity on January 6th, and as I've already said, should be put in jail for it, is wrong. It's not being truthful and honest. I think there were good people that were marching all across this country for racial equity last year that were not rioters and were not tearing down things and burning buildings. But that doesn't mean I'm going to ignore the ones that were. Let's be truthful about both situations and say we got a lot of work to do on both sides.
Listen, we are out of time, but we appreciate both of your voices tonight. Crystal Knight and Rick Green, good to have you both. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Have you paid off your student loans? Or how about your kids? How would you feel if President Biden forgave student loan debt? Should he? What about the rest of us? 2 millennials join us next to explain why they deserve a break. Or maybe not.
continuing conversations around student loan forgiveness in general. But I can tell you, we haven't been resting since President Biden took office. Close to $13 billion in student loan forgiveness and relief has already been done. So that means that in the last 6 months, over 600,000 borrowers received emails that they're either closer to being debt-free or are totally debt-free.
That was Education Secretary Miguel Cardona earlier on Rush Hour tonight, speaking to NewsNation's Nicole Burley on student debt forgiveness. President Biden has notably paused federal student loan repayments until May 1st. They were originally put on hold at the start of the pandemic. However, as that date looms in May, many progressives are calling on the president to cancel student debt altogether, making this relief permanent. According to the Chamber of Commerce, the total outstanding federal student loan debt currently stands at more than $1.5 trillion. Joining me now for more on this, two millennials, Braxton Brewington, press secretary for the Debt Collective, and Emily Jashinsky, culture editor at The Federalist. It's great to have you both. We love having young voices on to tell us what's happening. And this is an important topic. And I guess I'd like to start. If I were 23 or 24 or 25, I'd be all for this, I'm sure. Let's start, Braxton, with you. Are you in favor of this?
I am. And if I were 65 and having my Social Security check garnished because I couldn't afford to pay student loans, I'd be for this as well. The majority of Americans supported an extension to the pause, and they also support canceling student debt. This is a campaign promise that Joe Biden ran on, canceling at least a minimum immediately of $10,000 for every single borrower, and canceling all student debt if you went to a public college or HBCU and make under $125,000 per year. So this is politically popular, this is morally advantageous, and the macroeconomics are also on our side. Canceling student debt would boost the economy by over $108 billion per year.
Emily, you for or against this?
I'm against it. I think there are competing analyses when it comes to actually whether this would be a boost to the economy. For instance, progressive journalist, economic journalist Matt Iglesias has followed this issue for a really long time and actually recently crunched the numbers again and said he didn't actually think that this would be, he's saying basically in the net, this is a handout to people with higher earning potential and higher wealth than it is to people in the lower bracket. And you can say that it's probably still worth it to do that. It's a wealth transfer from people who have less money to those who have more money and more earning potential. That's a really, really crucial distinction when we look at whether this is regressive. People on the left say the idea that this is regressive is a myth. Well, you actually also have to look at earning potential. Doctors, for instance, are a very different thing. They have a lot of debt. But I also think the biggest pause that I have, I agree completely that people were sold a false bill of goods by our society when they signed up to go to college and paid exorbitant tuition costs. This makes it worse. This creates less incentive for our system of higher education to be reformed and to actually provide a good product to students at a reasonable price. And it's going to continue, if you forgive debt now, to drive students deeper and deeper into holes for generations to come because there's no incentive to fix it.
Yeah, that sounds actually like something you would support, Braxton. I think knowing how you feel about debt. But I'm curious about the fairness question. And people who say, well, I had paid mine already, what happens to them? This is almost like one of those great deals that the new customer gets that the old customer doesn't.
Well, listen, if we come up with a cure to cancer, is that going to be fair to the people who have suffered from it already? I mean, I think the argument is a bit bogus. 45 million borrowers and their families are saddled with nearly $2 trillion worth of debt. Biden ran on canceling the student debt, and that's exactly what he should do. The people who have student debt, I think there's this myth that they're magically rich and also are burdened by student loan debt. Rich people do not have student debt because they're rich. The truth is the people who have student debt are disproportionately Black Americans, Black women in particular. They're borrowers of color, they're seniors, and they're saddled with this debt. And the truth is, rather than being burdened with student loan debt, they're making tough decisions like, should I pay my rent or should I pay my student debt? I mean, the idea that wealthy are suffering from this is just not true.
Emily, I just have 15 seconds left. I'll give you the last word.
I think that's absolutely true. I think there are people of low means that are absolutely suffering, and disproportionately in some cases. But I think it also ultimately is a transfer from people who, in the aggregate, have less to people who have more potential to earn that down the road and took out a lot of money because they were going to be doctors and lawyers. I don't think that's particularly beneficial or particularly fair.
We'll see where it goes. But for now, you get a pause until May. Listen, we love having you guys as a panel. You're welcome back anytime. Good to see you both.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
On Balance with Leland Vittert starts at the top of the hour, and he joins us now.
They were pretty good. We might have to steal them. You got your lotto ticket yet?
I got in on the last one.
$690 million. You won the last one?
No, I borrowed $2 from Clark on the floor. I just paid him back
How'd that
today.
work out for you, Clark?
We won $8.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we're going to reinvest in the next roll.
Well, you only got a couple of hours, but we're going to tell you why it's how harder than ever to win Powerball, and the lie that is being told always, which is, hey, if you lose, the money goes to education. That's not really true.
All right, look forward to that.
But I'm in on the pool with you guys.
All right, we'll get you. What's your dog done for you lately? Well, we're going to tell you about a hero dog that helped lead police officers to 2 injured men in a car wreck. This is a Lassie story, and that's our snapshot next. After this week's nightmare traffic mess on I-95, the Virginia Department of Transportation, VDOT, is hiring. One lucky person can become VDOT's communications manager. The job description: to handle emergency response and crisis communications duties as needed. After this week's mammoth logjam, hopefully whoever has the job next knows what they're in for, including possibly a positive mindset. That'll help. Speaking of that traffic jam on 95, Vice President Kamala Harris facing some backlash over one of her recent tweets. While thousands of people were at a standstill for more than 24 hours on I-95, the vice president was touting the infrastructure bill, highlighting that the bill is going to get people moving. Timing everything, for sure, and certainly wasn't ideal on that tweet. A German Shepherd named Tinsley has earned her spot on our American Snapshot tonight after she led New Hampshire police officers to a car wreck. This is a great story. Officers noticed Tinsley on the highway, but when they approached her, she ran the other way, then stopped and looked back at them. The officers got the hint. Her owner, Cam Landry, was one of the 2 injured in the car wreck. By the time officers arrived, both men were suffering from hypothermia. They were taken to a local hospital. Tinsley rewarded with a much-deserved belly rub and a burger. Man's best friend. Tonight's Snapshot. More on Abrams tonight with the big dog, and Leland's next. Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.